The following video has been created without the use of AI. Please support your human content creators by liking the video and commenting something down below. Subscribing is optional. Now please, enjoy the show. Dark. Darker. Yet darker. A world of nothingness, showing no signs of life. Just cold. In it you walked. It's all you could do. Hello? Captain? You shouted nervously. But your voice fell on deafness. There was no one around to help. It was cold. You stretched out your hand and... Captain, we are picking up a signal. The silence that followed was deafening. Maybe an automated ship crashed. This is an asteroid field after all. Came the answer from the ship's captain, Timothy Brown. He had lost his wife in a messy divorce 20 years ago due to a child after coming home from combat, which was impossible to be his, as he hadn't been home in 2 years by that point. He and about 500 other lost souls had come together in the project Industry on the colony ship Arctic, sponsored by FromTech, a soda company which over the last 10 years had heavily invested into technology, especially military, and was currently constructing mining rigs on the less populated areas of Mars, where the Arctic was currently heading. This is the thing, sir. It's a cryopod signal, practically ancient. Captain Brown's brows furrowed. You were bored again and were flipping through channels again, weren't you? Sir, doesn't that really matter? We might just made contact with a lost vessel that is still has humans on board. Colony ships as well as recreational spacecrafts were the only manned space flights still occurring, mostly due to safety and cost reduction. Very well. Captain Brown sighed and ordered a team together, made up of 3 people. A marine, a nurse, and an engineer to suit up into spacesuits and explore the derelict. After all, he was contractually obligated to record and react to any anomalies on the mission, since the lives of 500 people were in his care. The scouting team was deployed in a small shuttle. With bated breaths, watched the bridge crew through the screens when the Marine's voice came over the intercom. Captain, the ship doesn't have a docking bay. What kind of ship these days doesn't have a docking bay? It's a freighter, sir. Old. The signs is Pony Express. Should we just break in? Almost immediately, Captain Brown owned his FromTech Interstellar Codex, a sort of internet connection all FromTech ships had. It was slow, but reliable. It worked across the stars. Proceed. If the ship is in this state, there shouldn't be any oxygen left anyways. So if there are survivors, they're in cold storage. Only you won't be harming them with that. Mumbled Captain Brown as he read an article about the company foreclosing about 17 years ago. Aye aye. The entire operation took 4 hours. The scout team used breathing tools to open a large square hole on the derelict, allowing the 3 scouts inside. They were met with the remnants of the tulpa. Skeletons, rotten furniture, trash, primarily mouthwash bottles from decades ago. And it were them who discovered a singular functioning cryopod. A grim atmosphere was created simply by its discovery. No one said a word as its emergency release was activated. But Captain Brown could tell by the silence that something was off with the cryopod. The Arctic's medical staff, as well as Captain Brown, were already standing expectantly in the cargo bay as the shuttle opened up. The pod was carefully carried away as the Marine pulled Captain Brown aside. "I have no idea what happened there, sir, but whoever that poor sap in the pod is, he needs immediate medical attention, to say the least. I recommend life jail. A lot of it." The darkness gave way to an image of space. You are floating, perhaps falling. As voices could be heard, shouts, cries, talking. The voice of a woman. In the back of my mind, it's always there. The voice of a man. "Hope this makes you feel fucking better." They were all disjointed, disordered, like the memories of a drug addict. It was rare that you talked with the captain, and being invited into his office was something that never happened before. Considering the rest of the Arctic was akin to a massive brutalist metal structure, actually having what looked to be a cozy room on the ship felt very alien to you. "Good evening, miss," he said as he was reading through some papers. Your name was Anastasia Meadows. You were an AI engineer for Fromtech, one of the many AI engineers on the ship. It just meant you could program a Fromtech service droid to do an intended function as well as do maintenance on their more delicate AI circuits. Overall, you weren't that valuable to the company, but enough to not get fired on a whim. "Do you by any chance remember our new guest?" Straight to the point, as always, you thought. He didn't even let you say hello first. Yes, sir, how couldn't I? Everyone's talking about them. "It's not a them, it's a he. DNA is a match with a certified captain going by the name of Curly." You blinked patiently. You still weren't quite sure why he told you this, to you specifically at least. "I'll be straightforward with you, Anastasia. Due to the damage he received, we have put him in life jail." You nodded. Life gel was a Fromtech innovation. A slime that was thick, turquoise, and vaguely smelled like toothpaste mixed with algae. Submerging a human within fed them with all nutrients required for fast recovery from injuries, allowing for things like hair and skin to regrow within days. Naturally, no scars were created as well. It was magical. "Of course he can't save his arms and legs, but for that we have prosthetics. Anyways, I have selected you out of the 500 on board to keep him company." With all due respect, sir, I still don't fully understand what that has to do with me. Why me? The captain pulled something out of his desk drawer. It was an ID card. It looked a little burned. Wordlessly, he pushed it towards you. Your eyes widened in surprise. Jesus! Was the only thing you could muster. "Keep religion for the dogs, Anastasia." Sir, with all due respect, wouldn't a psychologist be a better fit? "Don't have any. The Arctic's denizens are mostly mechanics and factory workers, as that's needed on the rigs first and foremost. If you want to complain, I'm all ears. Just be aware this might come with a deduction in your pay. You ground your teeth reluctantly, and then sighed. Taking the card in your hand, you looked at the person shown. May I speak off the record, sir? Captain Brown nodded. There is a 50-50 chance this is going to destroy his mind even further. Scared, you stood there. The world you found yourself in was twisted, not real, and strange. You were ankle deep in red liquid, in a vast sea of nothing. Out of the bloody ocean poked what seemed to be metal ladders, broken and crooked. And floating in what you would consider the sky were red displays showing a red warning sign. An expression, a mix of worry and fear, decorated your face as you wandered forward. Your pants were soaked, ruined. Thankfully, just like this mindscape, not real. Otherwise the stance would be horrible. Then again, why did you waste a thought on that? Oh well. Considering the desolation around you, maybe it was to keep you grounded. You stopped suddenly. You could see something in the distance, floating in the bloody water. Quickly you rushed forward. It was what seemed to be a corpse. You thought as you went closer and closer. Horribly mangled, just like the body in the vat. In fact, it was the same. With a concerned expression, you stood there for a moment. You hesitated. The body's blue eye stared at you. It vibrated rapidly. And then its mouth opened, and a voice came from it. A croak, deep and broken. And you thought the body had its skin burned off. The voice was perfectly audible, as if his lips were still intact. No, no, no. You gulped. I'm sorry, you said. There was regret in his voice. You inhaled deeply and said, but, excuse me, are you Captain Curly? The man's eye seemed to widen in its socket to the point where it almost fell out. Please, I'm sorry. You bit your lower lip and finally got over yourself. You knelt down next to the injured husk, sitting down in the water. Little awkwardly, you pulled the man closer. A hand gently placed under his head. His skin felt, well, his lack thereof. He felt leathery. And if it wasn't for the seriousness of the moment, you probably would have let go out of disgust. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. Everything is fine, you said. It was obvious he didn't believe you. You sighed, and with your free hand, you made a salute of sort. My name is Anastasia Meadows, AI technician, 3rd grade of FromTech. Currently a passenger on the colony ship Arctic, sponsored by FromTech. I'm pleased to make your acquaintance. It's too detailed, he croaked. You're not a fantasy. They don't have detailed descriptions like that. And yet, you look like her. I watched you die. I watched you die. Held onto me before slipping. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You pulled him closer. You wondered if it hurt him holding him like this. Though considering he was in the jail, there was no way he felt any pain right now. "You're very warm, Miss Meadows." You stood before the life gel vat, which contained the unfortunate guest from the derelict. A breathing apparatus was placed in his mouth as he floated. His eyes, or more lack thereof, were covered by a thick plastic box connected to wires leading to outside. You had his medical report. Festering inflammations, almost completely blood dry. Festering inflammations, almost completely dehydrated, practically dead from blood loss alone, missing eye, missing limbs. How he was alive was a miracle. Behind you, medical staff was preparing your bed. You looked down at your hand. You're still holding onto the ID. Minus your head, your body was right now covered in dark crimson soot that clung to you like a second skin. Wires stuck out from it, and it was difficult to breathe due to the tightness.
"Miss Meadows, we are ready for the transfer."
The FromTech virtual Skinsuite was top-of-the-line virtual reality equipment, and you were about to use it to have your body and mind synced up with Curly's artificial coma. "I still think it's cruel," you mumbled to yourself. Having obviously heard you, the nurse approached you.
"The captain believes seeing a familiar face might be helpful for Captain Curly's recovery."
You exhaled. Still holding onto the ID given to you by Captain Brown.
"And if at least I had a different haircut."
Why was it bothering you so much you looked almost like an exact clone of this Anya woman? After all, if Curly was the only survivor, she was long dead anyways. Uncomfortable, you shifted, and then approached the nurse.
"Look, let's just get it over with."
You sat at a table, on a birthday cake. No longer wearing your FromTech jumpsuit, but what you deducted was the Pony Express uniform, judging by the writing and banners. At least it too was a jumpsuit. You always felt comfortable in them. The burned Curly sat in front of you.
"You're taking this better than I expected, Captain."
"The site evaluations were quite positive. I do still need time."
The stumps of his arms slapped against his face.
"It's all my fault. All of it. My action led to all this. Me helping out my best friend led to all this. I just need time."
He breathed through his mouth, strained and exhausted. You gulped. But after about a minute, he caught himself.
"You must have questions, Miss Meadows. I find talking about existential dread is much more pleasant for some birthday cake. Hope you don't mind Pony Express's artificial slop."
"Is your gallows humor okay, sir?"
He chuckled.
"Gallows humor is all I've left, Miss Meadows. Oh, please, tell me about yourself."
I work for FromTech. When I'm not handling military-grade droids, I handle edible slop and disgusting soda.
The corporate world hasn't changed in 20 years. Not if I spend a full 20 years in stasis.
You gulped, trying to create pleasant rapport. Having a knife from the table, Curly flinched. You looked at him for a moment.
No, never mind. Go ahead. Just last time I saw that knife, I wish the mindscape created another one.
He shook his head.
Let's just eat, please. I need this.
Your heart sank, and yet you cut into the cake.
To a certain point,
He said after you placed the piece on your own plate.
anything is my fault. And the things resulting from that, I feel guilty for surviving. At least, that's what I think is happening here. Right? Anya, Stasia.
You gulped awkwardly. Everyone who goes through trauma and goes out of it alive has survivor's guilt. I think it's normal, right? Curly wanted to scoff, but doing so would lead to questions, followed by him having to relive the nightmare he went through before he was mentally ready. So he just kept quiet. Meanwhile, you sank your fork into the cake and ate a piece. It tasted like nothing. Or better, like nothing with the vague hint of sweetness. It wasn't gross per se, just very, very bland and dry. But considering what Curly told you the regular food from Pony Express was, well, it's safe to say you are glad you worked for a soda company.
I understand I have questions too. I like the man, sir.
He looked at him.
Where are we? What is this mindscape you called it? How are you in my head?
So, mindscape, yes. But I'm wearing the Skinsuite. You pulled at the Pony Express jumpsuit, revealing the dark crimson outfit beneath. We developed the technology to enter a shared dream. You spread your arm. You know, this. It is all based on your memories and dreams.
What is this tech? Didn't exist before I was frozen.
About 10 years. Every few years, FromTech brings out a new and improved version of the mindscape, making the last one useless, but luckily, since we are on FromTech's ship, they will always have the newest version on it. Curly chuckled darkly.
At least the companies in charge of us haven't changed. And how long will we stay like this?
You smiled. We use life gel to regenerate your body. While your limbs will be unrecoverable as well as your eye and nose, your skin will be back, your organs will function properly as well as no skin grafting being necessary. Well, maybe outside of, attaching a new nose. It should take about a month. This is proprietary technology, only for employees. So the captain made an exception for you.
Guessing when I wake up, you put me into a tight contract and an NDA.
You nodded and grimaced. Likely. Well. Another thing Jimmy had been wrong about. Curly would not be rising anytime soon. He would just be an indentured servant for a soda company. A fucking soda company. As grim as Curly's situation was, as traumatized as he was, and as little as your presence helped to actually get rid of his nightmares, it was still your presence that was a comfort to him, that he found invaluable. You're something from outside, a new person to see. Despite your physical similarities to Anya, you were someone new to talk to, and a hope to cling to. and perhaps it was because you looked like her, that it was easier to transition. Hope. Something he had completely given up on. The moment he had seen Jimmy grab the gun from under his patient bed. He couldn't believe that it was back. Hope. For once he was looking forward to the future. From questioning you, you both came to the conclusion that almost precisely to the day, 18 years had passed since he was frozen. Catching up on the political world on Earth and Mars was quite interesting too. For example, shortly after his departure from Earth, the first libertarian president had been elected in the United States. He apparently immediately reenacted the right to bear arms without a military license. Guy didn't even win the popular vote. It was also interesting. But then came his final question.
Were you spending the entire month with me?
Admittedly, you had expected this question, just not this late into the conversation. You rubbed your shoulders awkwardly.
I never did this before. Mindscaping.
You admitted.
So I'm not sure, but from what the captain said, yes.
You smiled helplessly.
We will be spending all month together, unless you don't want me here.
You looked to the side and thought. Your mouth half open, so clearly you still wanted to say something.
Though, I have to say,
you finally admitted.
Captain Brown is a hard ass, so more than likely if you reject me, he just leaves you in here alone.
You looked at the burned tusk before you.
Considering the state I found you in earlier, I feel like that would be good for you, Captain.
From my perspective, I'm talking to a time traveler. And you treat me like a person. I like that.
You tilted your head confused.
You don't know me any other than this.
He raised his thumbs awkwardly.
But my crew did, and I became a burden. They dehumanized me, even though they didn't want to. It's natural. And I watched all of them deteriorate. I couldn't do anything from where I was.
You spent the next couple of days sitting there with Curly in the Tulpa's living quarter. When you weren't talking, you either swiped down the bar with a wet towel just to do something, or stared at the screen depicting a beach scene. It even changed in accordance to the time. It was neat. You assisted him with eating and drinking, even though it was kind of useless of a task in the virtual world. After all, both of you were fed through tubes in real space. It was when you were sitting on the sofa, staring at the screen, when suddenly you exclaimed,
"Well, that's annoying."
Curly looked at you questioningly. The two of you had been playing a game of chess. Thanks to the virtualness of the mindscape, simply saying where to move a piece was enough for them to go there, so he didn't need his hands to use the chessboard. Noticing your questioning look, you added. You noticed his questioning look, and you added, "There's a dead pixel up there." The silence that followed was deafening.
What's wrong? Shouldn't I have said that?
His eyes became even more bloodshot. You could tell he was holding back tears.
He was shaking. And after a moment of anticipation, it cracked. He fell forward, sobbing, and he told you everything. From getting Pony Express to hire Jimmy, to his mental breakdown and the crash, and everything happening after it. What a terrible story. The fact that even now he was trying his best to hold back his tears, to not allow himself to cry, it stirred deeply within your soul. Honestly, it made you wish you were a genuine therapist. Maybe you could have given him some advice or a way to cope better. But instead, you could only hug him. Tightly, warmly, gently. His thumbs trying their best to fit around your body. But time was always a rather fickle mistress, and she had moved on, and the month went by faster than you expected. On the day you were woken up, leaving Curly alone in the mindscape for just a few minutes more, you saw his reconstructed body for the first time. As expected, the life gel couldn't perform miracles after all. His skin was back, his hair was back, he even had grown a few beard stubbles. You watched him lifted out of the gel and he awoke, his eye falling on you. You smiled and waved. But his torture wasn't over just yet. But this was the last time you'd see him for a long while as well, so you needed to wait until his physical therapy was over to see him again. Curly was given prosthetic arms and legs, a grafted skin nose and grafted skin lips. And with all of that, you didn't see Curly again for 6 months. Try as you might asking the nurses, it always led to the answer that he was still alive, but they weren't allowed to give answers. And apparently the captain was verifying the story he told them of what happened on the Tulpa. Mostly just making sure that up until the crash everything had been properly documented. But one day, while you were sitting in your personal quarters, enjoying a sugar-free Fromm shake while watching TV, the quarters bell rung. When you opened the door, you saw a rather handsome middle-aged man, blonde, eye patch, mechanical arms and legs, and a nose that was just slightly off color from the rest of his body. I'm going out on a whim here and say, Curly?
You can lock your quarters,
He said, before saying hi.
Yeah, hi, Anastasia, I wanted to see you.
You smiled, tilting your head a little. Oh, that's surprising.
If it's a bad time, I can just...
No. I'm glad you haven't forgotten me. You played with your hair, shyly.
How could I?
He said faster than his brain could stop him.
I mean, we spent an entire month together. How could I forget you?
Sure, it's... You can come in, it's just a bit messy. I tend to scatter dirty clothes everywhere.
He chuckled. I doubt a little mess will shock me.
He said it so nonchalantly, with an almost smug expression, but
he understood the gravity of these words.
Now inside your quarters, it was rather small. The Arctic was more akin to living in a bunker. Food was prepped by machines and given out in one of the 5 cafeterias on the ship, and otherwise only Fromm soda and Fromm-flavored gummy bears were accessible whenever desired to be eaten. Your space had space for 1-person bunk, with a TV screen, small square table, and 2 stools beneath it. A Fromm-tag advertising poster depicted a droid with a machine gun in its left and a soda can in his right hand, with the text, "Extra carbonated destruction only with Fromp," was hung on the empty wall. A small door led to what was the Arctic's interpretation of a bathroom, essentially a small shower that also worked as a toilet via an extendable seat and a metal locker for clothes, half of which you had scattered on the very sparse floor. But Curly just didn't comment on them, and the two of you just sat down on the cramped space under your bed. "I'm glad you healed fine. You look great." Curly nodded. "I'm glad too. I'm even more glad I was compatible with the prosthetics." But as he looked at the blue-painted mechanical arms, his expression became a little grim. "Well, as expected, I'm an indentured servant now. We'll be working until my debt is paid off for the treatment and the therapy. It's good though, I'm a trained captain, so I'll be put on air delivery duty between planet-side factories. Captain Brown said, at least it won't be boring." He smirked darkly. "And just like that, I'm back where I started. Fucking delivery flights." "Just on a smaller scale. After all, you won't be leaving bars." He made an expression that said, "I haven't thought of it like that." "You have a point," he admitted. "Plus, not like I'll be leaving the rig I arrive in. I'll basically just controlling several drones in a cozy little office." You sighed and then smiled. "That sounds much more better than my job. I'll have to babysit a squad of mining droids, make sure they don't cause cave-ins, and make sure they don't develop sentience." "Huh, that must be stressful." You nodded. "A lot of responsibility, but I've been doing this for 5 years, so I can handle it. Just, the mining part is new. I'm a little afraid." Hearing the word responsibility made Curly's new nose twitch, but he managed to bury the feeling. You know, you never told me why you joined the colony ship. The way Captain Brown spoke of it, it's a one-way trip. Did something happen on Earth?" "Well, of course something did happen. See, I have my own demons, Just instead of a guy named Jim, his name is Brad." You exhaled sharply. "Abusive ex, all this typical crap, and I'm not going to deal with an abusive stalker before, he can abuse me even more. So I jumped to the opportunity. Some might say it's overkill, but I say," you proudly smiled, "it's a choice I did myself. My first real choice as an adult that wasn't based on anyone else's suggestion." Curly smirked. "Well, I guess I'm happy you're happy." Your own smile became warm. "What about you?" I think I can now appreciate having survived. I think I can be happy again. I think I can get over this. Of course, I'm not gonna lie, it will always be part of me. I lost my skin, but I'll be able to deal with it sometime down the line. I heard on the rig there are therapists. Just gotta, sit out these last 2 months on this rust bucket until we arrive there and I can speak with them. It's also thanks to you I can do this, You gave him back something I thought I'd lost forever. You blushed as he became sentimental. And what would that be? Hope. I realized something. Hope is just something you can't appreciate until you truly lose it. and you returned it to me. I appreciate it. In that case, I don't ever want to lose it. You smiled helplessly. Well, I guess that's a good motto. And I'd hate for you to lose it again. Your eyes met. There was a strange silence that followed. Both your eyes were twitching, trying to make sense of the other's expression. And then, in the same moment, your faces inched closer. Your noses touched and he was about to pull away, but quickly you grabbed the back of his head. Your lips touched. You contained the comment that his skin felt soft like a baby. After all, the sensation of his touch was very nice and gentle. His breath was calm, with mild amusement. You honestly had hoped for this outcome, and for a moment you separated. So, Anastasia, what's Fromtek's opinion on two employees getting it on? He asked with a pleasant smile.
Well, HR doesn't like it. Mostly because separating couples among employees is considered a social faux pas. Of course, unless they break up. Oh, and there's no pregnancy leave. So, better use protection.
You smirked at each other for a moment, like teenagers about to do something illegal for the very first time. Your foreheads bumped against each other as he leaned forward. Good. Well, it's a good thing we'll be working with the same rig together then, Anastasia.
You're taking the words right out of my mouth, Captain Curly.
He kissed you again, this time with more conviction, more passion. And it was much, much hotter. Your heart was racing as both of you knew what the other wanted. You couldn't wait for him to take off your jumpsuit. You couldn't wait for him to lie you down in your bed.
Hey, you watched the video until the very end. That's very kind of you. But before I say goodbye, I have to shout out all of my lovely channel members, especially my high-ranking darling stewards, who get a members-only video every month. Join the tier for just $4.99. Anyways, we have Nicolai Hatcher, Maxi Cat, Alison Watkins, Bella Mare, Mystic Jade 111, Giovanna Moretti, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, Anonymous Weep, and Nicodemus D. Thank you for supporting me. Also, thank you to everybody else who is supporting me. You are keeping me alive.